Hi, we're back again, and we have a very beautiful young lady we've seen before. Kayla has been here several times, and we're so glad to have her back. Hi,
Thank you.
Kayla.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Yes, it's good to see you, and you look
Thank
just
you.
gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much.
But I know that what's most important is what you're going to be talking about.
Yes, yeah. So, last year I was here a lot because we were doing a lot. We did a tour. We were publishing a magazine. I created a fashion line. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And this year it's been a lot of more internal changes, right?
Yeah,
like
good.
I got married.
You got married.
Yes.
Oh, congratulations. How wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that a lot of people in my generation specifically are afraid of commitments, and I don't know why, because I'm 26 and I don't know anyone that's married. So I'm just like, wow, okay, but it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful commitment. So I've been really focusing on, how to be the best mother, how to be a good wife, and it takes a lot of focus. So to all the married women out there, props to you. 'Cause it's a full-time job. But so I recently one of my friends, Lisa Talley, she produces the Fresno Flyer. She reached out to me and she asked me to come up with some writing pieces. So, as I'm going through my own internal revolution, I've been writing about an external revolution and what's been going on in our world. And so I've been working on a series called Exploring Revolution. And it's very political. It's sometimes poetic. But it's been a very interesting process. I've never had deadlines that I have to keep up with,
Wow.
And so
Yeah, that's hard.
yeah, but I started the series by asking the question, what is revolution? What is it? And trying to identify what a revolution looks like. And I actually brought I think you might be able to see it on the screen, but I brought a quote from the first article, and it goes, "A revolution is the erupting frequency of social, systematic, or sustain the majority. Revolution is a cycle in time when one stage ends and another begins. Collectively, on a global scale."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know my husband keeps saying that this country's going to have a revolution. It's just
Yes.
that the people are just getting so tired of being cheated.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've been looking through different revolutionary texts to kind of pull inspiration and to see what other experts have said on these matters. And really, there's this book. It's an excellent book. It's called The Natural History of Revolution. It was written 100 years ago, but they went and looked at different societies when revolution started to begin. And usually it occurs in the third generation when a system has failed. The third generation are the people who carry that weight of a broken system on their shoulders and really want that change. And so I think we are in the third generation. And it's interesting. It's very interesting to look into revolutions. And so the latest piece that was published was actually titled "Black Liberation in the White Man's America," and it's kind of looking at systematic oppression, slavery. And what's really interesting is the Fresno Bee actually published an article talking about the disparities of West Fresno compared to that of North Fresno. And as that article was released, I was turning in my article to be published. And it was just, it felt very affirmating that you know, I can be in tune to these conversations and have that data to back it up, you know. And
Oh, great. I'm so glad that you started to do that. It's just exciting.
Yeah, it is. And you know, every month I just kind of try to open myself up. It's a spiritual process for me, you know.
Yeah.
So I open myself up. I ask the Creator, the Great Spirit, however you would like to identify, and I just ask, you know, what needs to be written on, what needs to be highlighted, you know. And
Wow.
the article that's going to be published by the end of this month, it's due tomorrow, so I'm like, oh, gotta get it in, you know, these deadlines. But it's actually exploring the mental health crisis here in America, and how I compare the institutions of the 1840s, the asylums, the mental asylums, and how they treated people, and the horrors that happened inside of those asylums, and how it's not much has changed today, you know. And mental health has gone a long ways, but when poor people specifically experience serious mental health issues, they're thrown in jail rather than getting the services that they need.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
Right.
Well, you know why? That started with Reagan.
Yes.
And when he had changed the rules about them going into institutions. But my gosh, they're just out on the street, and they're upset, and nobody knows it.
Exactly.
Nobody does anything about it. And then all of a sudden they get in a car and hit a couple dozen people.
Right.
You know, it's not right. They should be taken care of. They should
Right.
be healed.
Absolutely.
As much as they, I'm sure a lot of that can be healed.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm not calling to abolish the mental health system, you know, but I think that we need to address the areas that aren't working, and find solutions. Because at the end of the day, over 30% of the homeless population are dealing with serious mental illness. It's not just like you were saying, you know, these people are on the street, they're suffering, and a lot of the times they're suffering from their environments, but they may be going through a much more traumatizing battle within their own minds.
That's right.
Yeah, and so
that's
yeah.
why they stayed there, because they know they can't handle a normal life.
Right.
They can't. So they stay there.
Right. Yeah. And so how can we address these things, you know? And that's really a lot of, I bring up these large societal issues, but I try to every single time provide solutions that we as individuals can do, you know? And I think that these conversations are important. I think that every single person has a role in being able to shift our society to a healthier place. And so it's up to all of us, you know. A lot of the times we're dependent on the policymakers, and we forget about our actual community, you know, and what can happen, what can we build here, what can we build now, what conversations can we have, and I try to highlight that in the series.
I think a lot of that, it's important for people to start seeing that there's another person there.
Yeah.
You know, you go around and you don't see the people around you, and you just ignore them, like you don't, like they're not people. Or you just, instead of smiling,
Right.
instead of talking to them,
Yes.
and just you can just see the glow on somebody's face when you give them a big hi and how are you?
Yeah.
You know, because they don't see it that often anymore. There's not enough. You gotta have more love.
Yes.
You gotta have more love. There's nothing that can heal things like love.
Yes, yeah, love is a very powerful energy, and it has great potential, and you know it's interesting how I think that individuals become very isolated because we're such a individualistic society. You know, we value doing things on our own. We value being independent, you know, but at what point are we losing our humanity with those values and that identity, you know? And when you look at societies that value collectivism, you know, what is good for the whole, they don't have issues like we do. They don't have a homeless crisis, a national homeless crisis. They don't have things like rape culture. You know, they don't have single mothers struggling. A lot of these issues just don't even exist in societies that value the whole, you know?
And that's something we can do that doesn't cost us money.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you look at something and say, oh, I wish I could do something. But you can do in a small way.
Yes.
If you can't solve the whole thing, you can just at least put a little thing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So I'm hoping to do, this is a 10-piece series, so I'm on volume, this is going to be the fourth one to be published, and I love Fresno Flyer. I want to do a shout out for Fresno Flyer because Lisa Talley, she created the newspaper. It's in print, which I love. I love the
Something in
printed paper
print,
feeling,
yeah.
you know? And then it's also online, and she teaches at CMAC, so the Community Media Access Center here in Fresno, and then she's also a Fresno State professor. So this woman, she's like all kinds of busy, but somehow she finds time to publish a newspaper 2 times out of the month. And I'm very thankful that she's given me this opportunity. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see where the series goes. I'm very interested in writing about, like I had mentioned before, the rape culture here in America, because it's a huge issue, you know, and just overall the value of women. You know, do we value our women? Do we value our mothers, our grandmothers, our sisters, our daughters? And I think that can kind of be linked back to some of these issues that we see, you know, with domestic violence and sexual assault. And, you know, like I said, this is an individual thing that we can change on a small micro level. And, you know, also encouraging the men out there. Our men so oftentimes turn the blind eye when there's a situation that they could stand up for and really change the narrative, change the energy of a situation. And so, not, you know, I'm not a man hater. I'm not a feminist, you know. I think that feminism really excludes a lot of people from the conversation. I see myself more as a matriarch, where, you know, every single person has an importance and something of value and a perspective that's important. And, you know, how can we rise up? How can we, you know, take ourselves out of this horrible situation that we're in? You know, it's
Well,
tragic.
I've heard lately there are certain people that are getting the young men, like about 15 or something, and teaching them what the relationship should be and how you should treat a woman.
Yes.
And I think that's a little step
Yes,
forward.
Yeah. And I think largely, you know, the battle, it's political, but it's also a cultural battle, because I work with the youth and I see the content that is shared with them. I mean, just listening to the radio for 15 minutes can just like drive me crazy, you know, because there's so much profanity, there's absolutely no content, and it's incredible that there's not masses of parents calling into the radio stations demanding that this stuff be taken off, because I mean, I have 13-year-olds wanting to be strippers. 13-year-olds saying
God.
that, you know, the only job out there for me, I'm just going to be a stripper. And that is the reality that our youth is dealing with, that our youth is fighting against. And it's a tragedy. It is a tragedy, and it's in the movies, it's in the music. You know, it's what the culture that is being fed to our younger generations is absolutely toxic. And it's incredible to me that, you know, are we numb to it? You know, I mean, I was talking to my brother and he was like, if our grandmother heard one of these songs, she would cry.
Oh, gosh.
She would just cry, because it's just,
Oh,
it's
sure.
horrendous, you know, and how are we not standing up against this? You know, how are we collectively saying, hey, don't feed that to our kids. You know, we want things that are uplifting, that are positive. Like, this is a battle against our children's minds, you know? And so, parents out there, call B95.
Yes,
Call
please do.
Q97. It's ridiculous that this is being, you know, out there.
Yeah, it's so easy to take a blind eye. You're right. It just, you know, you get involved in your own problems and you forget there's other people with much worse problems out there.
Yeah. So, you know, overall, I think that, you know, we can manage to pull out of the state that we're in right now with so much division, so much poverty, so many lack of resources, constant perpetual war. You know, there's so much within our society, historical traumas, current traumas, you know, and just how to strengthen ourselves, first of all, you know. On our website, futureofminds.com, we have a mission statement, and it's 5 talking points, and it's essentially saying, you know, take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your community. You know, and in those aspects, and there's 2 other ones, it's something artistic and creative, you know, like, but those are really key, you know, and I in one of my articles, I address activists, you know, and revolutionaries, and I say, you know, if gray hairs are sprouting faster than the weeds in your backyard, you know, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to say, this is too much right now, and you know, self-care, it's necessary in these times. So
You should, because practically everybody is cheating everybody else. Your food, even in the store, it used to be a full box and you paid 50 cents, and that now it's a half one and you pay $1.50.
Right.
I mean, that's cheating.
Yeah.
You know, it's not right. Somewhere, somehow, something, and maybe it's starting with you, we've got to start shaping up and doing the right things.
Yes.
It doesn't take any longer time or anything just to do the right thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one thing that I think is really important is be active in your local community. You know, whether it's coming on a show like this and sharing your creative endeavors, I think that's very, very important. But also, I just encourage people that really care, run for City Hall, run for City Council. You know, I truly believe that whether or not that you voted for Brand, I think that he's going to be the last of that mentality and that face of politics. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot more younger people come into the political sphere, and I'm very excited for that. The mayor of Stockton, Michael Tubbs, he's 26, youngest mayor.
Great.
To be in Stockton, the Stockton mayor, and first African American man. And so I think that the more we diversify the conversation, and the more that we really value the youth's and the younger people's perspective, you know, because they're seeing what's happening in the current moment.
Right.
You know, they're in it. They go to where things are happening, you know, and if we can start to pull that energy into our city councils, our city halls, I think that beautiful changes can happen, you know, on a local level.
I feel that we have the spirit, whatever you want to call it, is very aware, and is right now, all of this stuff is a clearing and cleansing.
Yes.
You're finding all the bad people. You're finding the bad things that they're doing. And it's painful to go through it, but you just have to put your blinders on and walk through it and know that everything's going to turn out all right.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, honey, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming
Thank you.
in. I think you're just spectacular.
Oh, you're so sweet.
And you come in again and tell us what new things you're doing.
I will. Yeah,
Okay,
I will.
honey.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, thank you so much. Merry Christmas.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a fun show, and we're all gonna have a great Christmas, and we'll see you after Christmas. Bye-bye.